It is said that it contains the most valuable and secret teachings of all time. For those who dare to read it, this book promises great rewards, but for those who seek to destroy it, it also warns of severe punishments. But what exactly is this book, and why has it been kept hidden from us for so long? Well, there's a book that speaks of fallen angels, giant offspring, and hidden knowledge that can unlock our true potential. A book quoted by early church fathers, like Jude, and even by the Bible itself. But it was banned, forgotten. This is the Book of Enoch. Today we are going to explore this forbidden text and discover what they didn't want you to know. Part 1. What is the Book of Enoch? The Book of Enoch, also known as 1 Enoch, is an ancient Jewish text believed to be written between 300 to 100 BCE. It claims to be written by Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Genesis 5:24 tells us, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him. But where did he go? And what did he see? Well, according to this ancient text, Enoch was taken on a journey through the 7 heavens and the 7 earths. He was shown the secrets of the universe and taught the mysteries of creation. He saw the books of life and death and learned the fate of humanity. Enoch was given the knowledge of good and evil, and he was shown the tree of life, which is the source of all wisdom and understanding. The Book of Enoch tells the story of how the angels fell from heaven, and how they mated with human women and produced giants on the earth. It also tells of how the Watchers, a group of fallen angels, were imprisoned in the abyss for their sins. In addition, it speaks of the hidden wisdom of the universe, which is accessible to those who seek it out. According to this book, Enoch was so wise and righteous that God gave him the gift of prophecy. He was able to predict the future and warn humanity about the coming judgment. However, Enoch also knew that there was hope for humanity if they repented and turned away from their wicked ways. This ancient text is divided into 5 parts: the Book of the Watchers, the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, the Book of Parables, the Dream Visions, and the Book of Enoch. The Book of the Watchers tells the story of the fall of the angels and the birth of giants on earth. The Book of the Heavenly Luminaries describes the creation of the sun, moon, and stars and explains their purpose. The Book of Parables contains teachings and stories about righteousness and wickedness, heaven and hell, and the end times. The Dream Visions describe Enoch's visions and dreams, and the Book of Enoch gives an account of Enoch's life and his teachings. It is important to note that not all scholars believe that Enoch wrote this book. Many think it was written by multiple authors over a period of centuries. However, this does not take away from the power or importance of the text. Even if it was not written by Enoch himself, it still contains valuable insights into the beliefs and traditions of the Jewish people in the time before Christ. In fact, the Book of Enoch was widely accepted as part of the Old Testament canon until the 4th century AD, when it was removed by the Council of Jamnia. Despite being excluded from most modern Bibles, the Book of Enoch remains an important historical document that provides insight into the development of Jewish thought. We have heard about the Nephilim before, but who exactly are they and what kind of giants did they have? Let's take a closer look at this fascinating topic. As mentioned earlier, the Book of Enoch refers to giants existing on earth during the time before the Great Flood. These beings were the product of fallen angels, also known as Watchers, mating with human women. The Watchers were heavenly beings who rebelled against God and chose to live among humans rather than serving in the heavenly court. They were drawn to the beauty of human women and decided to have children with them. These unions produced giants known as Nephilim, Rephaim, and Emim. The Nephilim are mentioned in Genesis 6:4 as being among the giants of old, enormous and powerful men of renown. They were known for their strength and stature, often depicted as having multiple heads and eyes. Rephaim were also mentioned in Deuteronomy 2:20 as a race of giants inhabiting the region of Bashan. Their name means destroyers or arrogant ones, and they were fierce warriors who challenged the Israelites during their conquest of Canaan. The Emim were another race of giants mentioned in Deuteronomy 2:21 as living east of the Jordan River. They were tall and muscular men who were defeated by the Israelites under the leadership of Moses. It is important to note that the Bible does not provide detailed accounts of these giants, but only mentions them briefly as existing during the time before the Great Flood and in the early days of Israel's history. However, other ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch, contain more detailed descriptions of these beings. The Book of Enoch describes the Watchers as having been led by a fallen angel named Azazel, who taught humans forbidden knowledge and caused them to stray from the path of righteousness. It also provides a more comprehensive account of the Nephilim, describing them as being the offspring of the union between fallen angels and human women. According to Enoch, the giants grew to be enormous, reaching heights of up to 30 cubits, which is approximately 45 feet. They were strong and violent, causing widespread destruction and suffering. However, some scholars question the historical accuracy of these accounts, suggesting that they may have been based on myths and legends rather than actual historical events. They argue that the mention of giants in the Bible and other ancient texts may have been a way to explain natural phenomena or may have been used as literary devices to convey religious messages. Others believe that the existence of giants is consistent with other evidence of ancient human-like creatures found in various archaeological sites around the world. Proponents of this view argue that the discovery of ancient human fossils and artifacts suggest that humans and other humanoid creatures coexisted in the past. The truth is that the existence of giants during the time of Enoch remains a topic of debate and speculation. While there is no concrete evidence to prove or disprove their existence, the stories and legends surrounding them continue to fascinate and inspire wonder. Whether or not giants roamed the earth during the time of Enoch, their presence in ancient texts serves as a reminder of the rich tapestry of human history and the enduring power of storytelling. Did you know that there is a secret wisdom hidden in the universe just waiting to be discovered? According to the Book of Enoch, this wisdom is encoded in the very fabric of reality and can unlock incredible powers within us. The author of this book claimed to have received this wisdom during his ascension to heaven, where he was shown the secrets of creation and the nature of the divine. He revealed this knowledge in the form of parables and stories that teach us about righteousness, wickedness, heaven and hell, and the end times. One of the key teachings of this wisdom is that we have the ability to shape our own destiny. We are not merely puppets of fate, but active participants in the unfolding of our lives. Through our choices and actions, we can either move closer to God or stray further from His path. The Book of Enoch teaches that there are forces in the universe that seek to deceive and mislead us, tempting us with worldly pleasures and leading us away from the path of righteousness. However, those who seek wisdom and understanding can overcome these temptations and attain spiritual enlightenment. To access this hidden wisdom, one must first have faith in God and a willingness to learn. It requires a deep desire for knowledge and a commitment to seeking truth. By cultivating these qualities within ourselves, we open the door to understanding the deeper mysteries of the universe. Another essential aspect of accessing this wisdom is the need for humility and a pure heart. We must be willing to let go of our ego and pride and approach knowledge with a sense of wonder and openness. By purifying our hearts and minds, we can become vessels through which wisdom can flow. Once we have cultivated the necessary qualities, we can begin to seek out the wisdom that is hidden in plain sight. It is all around us in the natural world, in the patterns of the cosmos, and in the teachings of enlightened beings. By paying attention to these signs and symbols, we can begin to decode the messages they contain and gain insight into the nature of reality. However, it is important to remember that this wisdom is not meant to be hoarded or used for selfish purposes. Rather, it is meant to be shared and used for the benefit of all. When we spread wisdom and enlightenment, we contribute to the betterment of humanity and the advancement of consciousness. In conclusion, the hidden wisdom spoken of in the Book of Enoch is a powerful force that can transform our lives and bring us closer to the divine. By cultivating faith, humility, and a pure heart, we can access this wisdom and use it to guide us on our journey through life. So let us embrace the search for knowledge and understanding and strive to become wise and enlightened beings who contribute to the betterment of humanity as a whole. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, may you be blessed with wisdom, peace, and joy. Part 2 talked about the beginning of humanity and the first humans created by God, Adam and Eve. They lived in harmony with each other and nature until things started to go terribly wrong. Now let's continue with Part 2, the Watchers and the Fall. According to Enoch, a group of angels called the Watchers descended to earth. They were supposed to watch over mankind and keep an eye on us to see if we were worthy of God's love. But something happened that made them forget their duty. The Book of Enoch tells a tale of how these angels were pure and holy when they first arrived on earth. But while watching us, they grew weak and began to lust after human women. The book says the Watchers abandoned their posts and chose to leave heaven for the pleasures of earth. They were seduced by the beauty of the daughters of men and went to live among humans. This is where things got really messed up. These angels ended up taking human wives, and this wasn't just a casual fling. No, sir. They actually had kids with these women, and not just one or two, but lots of them. You might be wondering, what kind of kids can angels and humans have? Well, get ready for this. These children were giants, and they didn't just look big. They were trouble with a capital T. They were called the Nephilim, and they were a mix of angel and human blood. The Bible calls them the sons of God and the sons of men. It's hard to imagine how these unions happened, since angels don't really do the physical stuff like, being intimate with humans. But in the world of religious texts, anything goes. Anyway, these giant kids weren't exactly the poster children for good behavior. Oh no, they caused all sorts of trouble on earth. One of the Watchers, named Azazel, was so smitten with his human wife that he totally forgot about his angelic duties. He got her pregnant and then ran away from earth. When his wife gave birth to their son, whom they named Goliath, Azazel dumped him on earth and left him to fend for himself. But don't worry, Goliath wasn't alone. He had some giant buddies who were also the product of angelic trysts with human women. These giant Watchers' offspring were massive. They grew to be 9 cubits tall, and if you're wondering what a cubit is, it's basically an ancient unit of measurement equal to the length of a forearm plus a handspan. So multiply that by 9 and you get one humongous giant. Here's the thing, though. These giants weren't just big in size. They were also super strong, and let me tell you, they put those old-school bodybuilders to shame. 1 cubit was equal to about 18 inches, which means these giants towered over us mere mortals at a height of around 6 feet 9 inches. Plus, they were incredibly robust, tipping the scales at a whopping 600 pounds. And let me tell you a little story about a giant named Og. Og was the king of Basan, and when Moses sent men to check out the land of Canaan, guess who tried to take them out? That's right, Og and his cronies. If it hadn't been for some divine intervention, Moses' spies would have joined the club, the 6-foot-long club that is. Okay, here's another story involving a giant named Amor. He was a real piece of work, preying on people in broad daylight, carrying off maidens to his lair, and generally causing mayhem. Until one day along came Ehud, a member of Israel's clan of Benjamin. He was a total badass, managing to sneak into Amma's fortress despite its thick walls and high towers. Why? Because he was only 5 feet tall. Being short clearly had its perks, because when Amma let Ehud loose, thinking he was just a lowly left-handed servant, he had no idea what hit him. In the end, Og and Amma met their match, thanks to some divinely inspired trickery. As for the rest of the Nephilim, well, their legacy lives on in the tales of mighty men and heroes of old. Some say they were half-brothers, the offspring of fallen angels and human women. Others claim they were the result of human fathers having kids with their daughters who had hooked up with angels. Whatever the truth, these giants were a force to be reckoned with. They were born of heavenly unions and destined for greatness. Let me introduce you to some of the most notorious giants in the club, the Nephilim. First up, there was Rephaim. These guys weren't messing around. They were giants of Gath and lived in the area known as Rephaim. In the Bible, it's mentioned that King David took out a whopping 700 of these giants during a battle. Talk about a one-man army. Then we've got the Antidonim, also known as Anakims, Rimonims, Ziphim, and Shorims. These guys were born in Canaan before Joshua led the Israelites to conquer the Promised Land. We're talking prehistoric times, people. Even today, there are ancient ruins and artifacts that hint at their existence. Moving on to the Emims, you might have heard of them in the Old Testament. They were pretty much wiped out by the Israelites, except for a few stragglers who survived in the wilderness of Judah. Next up are the Zamzumim, a mysterious bunch who lived in the mountainous regions. What's interesting is that they showed up in an ancient Egyptian text called the Turin King List. These giants are said to have inhabited the area between the River Nile and the Red Sea. Now let's talk about the Rephidim. Unlike the others, they didn't hang out in specific places. Instead, they were scattered all over the countryside. They were described as smooth-skinned and long of life, which makes me wonder if they had any special powers. And last, but certainly not least, the Horims. They made their home in the southern region of Canaan and were pretty much wiped out by Joshua, except for one guy named Adoni-Bezalel, who managed to escape to Egypt. Now let's get back to our story. While these giant Nephilim were causing all kinds of chaos on Earth, the rest of the Watchers were busy sharing their forbidden knowledge with humans. They taught them all sorts of dangerous stuff, like how to make weapons for warfare, how to brew poison, and even how to practice witchcraft. Can you believe that? Angels turned teachers. Who would have thought? They also introduced humans to astrology and astronomy, showing them the stars and constellations in the night sky, and claiming that these heavenly bodies were gods. The humans took this knowledge and ran with it, embracing paganism and sacrificing animals to these new gods. It was a mess. As for the humans, well, they couldn't handle this newfound power. Violence erupted everywhere. People were fighting each other and killing their own kin. There was murder, bloodshed, and all kinds of evil spreading like wildfire. It was a far cry from the peaceful world God had intended, and let me tell you about the corruption that spread like wildfire. Humans fell like dominoes, turning against one another and shedding blood everywhere. Murder, bloodshed, and evil became their way of life. So what did God do? He sent a massive flood to wipe out the wicked. Only Noah and his family were saved, along with 2 of every animal. Everything was destroyed, cities, people, and even the angels. All that remained was a watery grave for the Watchers, trapping them deep beneath the ocean. But here's the kicker. God gave them another chance. After the flood, the angels were given another shot at redemption, but instead of learning from their mistakes, they did the same thing again. The Book of Enoch says they rebelled yet again, but this time God wasn't having it. He chained them up and threw them in prison, leaving them there to rot. Talk about a bad case of divine justice. The Nephilim are in the land, and their time on earth is drawing to a close. The watchers have been exposed, and humanity has been corrupted. But there's one more thing that God needs to do before he cleanses this world: send a final warning. And he sends his most unlikely messenger yet. I know what some of you are thinking. You're probably thinking, wait, hold on. Wait, the Book of Enoch isn't actually canon, right? Well, it's true that most Christians don't consider the Book of Enoch to be part of the biblical canon. However, the fact that it's not in our modern Bibles doesn't mean it's not an ancient book or that it's not important. In fact, there's evidence that the Book of Enoch was quoted and referenced by other biblical writers. For example, Jude quotes Enoch in his letter, and Jesus quoted Enoch when he spoke about the coming destruction of Jerusalem. So whether you consider the Book of Enoch to be canonical or not, it is still an important historical text, and it sheds light on the time period in which it was written, which is right smack in the middle of the intertestamental period, a time when the Old Testament had ended and the New Testament hadn't begun yet. This is the time period between Malachi and Matthew, between the last book of the Old Testament and the first book of the New Testament. So if you think of the timeline like this, we're now in the Book of Enoch. We're in the intertestamental period. We just finished looking at the corruption that happened in the days of Noah, how it reached such a point that God had to send a flood to cleanse the earth. And now he's sending one of the most unlikely prophets to come and warn humanity of what's to come, a man named Enoch. Now, in the Book of Enoch, we get an interesting account of how he received his prophetic message from God. As we read in 1 Enoch 14, "And Enoch, while he was walking in all things righteously and perfectly, looked up toward heaven, and lo, these were all inscribed on tablets of stone on high, beginning with the creation of the first book until the end. And as he continued, behold, the Lord of spirits raised him up and placed him amid the clouds, and said, Enoch, my servant, you have been faithful, and you have walked in the presence of the Most High, and you have kept justice and righteousness and peace with all who were called according to your lot. And now I am going to reveal to you what is reserved for them. And he showed me the book of life, and in it the righteous are established, and their deeds and their works, their children's works and their righteousness. And I saw their souls in the garden of delight with the blessed, where they were joyful and glad forever and ever. Then he showed me another book, and in it were recorded the secrets of sins, and I looked and saw the unrighteous being cut off from the world, and their children's works, and their transgressions, and their sin. And I saw their souls being cast into the lake of fire and torment. And they cried out, and were troubled, and said, How long is our torment? So Enoch here is given a vision of two books. There's the book of life, which records the righteous, and then there's also a book of secrets, which records the sins of mankind. And then God tells Enoch, You know, you've been a good and faithful servant. Let's go up to heaven, and I'm going to show you what's coming. So Enoch is taken up into the heavens, and this is something we see throughout many different religious traditions. When someone is taken up into heaven, they usually come back with some kind of message from God. Enoch is no exception. As we continue reading in 1 Enoch 16, Then I blessed the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I fell down on my face. And behold, a chariot was there whose wheels were like burning coals and fiery smoke, and a multitude of thousands ministered to it, whose faces were terrible and dreadful, like terrible mountains. Their eyes were like flaming torches, and chariots and horsemen rushed forth with them, and there were heard the sound of trumpets and the shouting of men, and the sound of a great crash, and the whole earth trembled before them. And I, Enoch, was seized and carried away by them in the midst of the firmament. And I saw the Lord of hosts, and there was no sound except the sound of his voice, and his voice was gracious. This is an incredible passage because we can see many similarities to the transfiguration of Jesus Christ, when Jesus took Peter, James, and John up into the mountain, and they saw his glory, and they heard the voice from heaven that said, This is my beloved Son, Listen to him. Well, here Enoch hears the voice of God as he's taken up into the heavens, and he gives us an incredible description of the throne room of God. If you want to see a depiction of what Enoch saw here, look no further than Ezekiel chapters 1 and 10. Or if you want another good depiction of this, look at the movie The Throne of Grace by VeggieTales. It's a great VeggieTales movie that depicts the heavenly throne room very similarly to what Enoch describes here. And after Enoch sees God's throne and hears the voice of God, God says to him, "Enoch, you are my chosen messenger. I'm going to send you to the watchers, to warn them of the judgment that's coming. They won't listen to you, but you must tell them anyway." And so Enoch is sent to the watchers, and he warns them of their imminent destruction. And you know, it's funny, because you would think that the watchers would be pretty scared. But instead, they mock Enoch. They mock his message. They mock his warning. And it reminds me of what Jesus said in Luke 17 when he warned people about the coming destruction of Jerusalem. And he said that if they didn't repent, they would all perish. And Jesus said, "Woe to you, because you would have avoided all this. Woe to you, because you would have escaped all this. Woe to you, because all this will fall upon you." And the Pharisees and the lawyers mocked Jesus. They didn't believe him, and they ended up suffering the consequences. Well, the same thing happens with Enoch. The watchers mock him and ultimately suffer the consequences. As we read in 1 Enoch 15, "Then I, Enoch, proclaimed the end of the watchers before the Most High, and thus I declared their transgressions and their sin. And I said, O Lord of spirits, you know the end of those who dwell on earth, and you know all their transgressions and their sin. All flesh has corrupted its ways and defiled its soul in its entirety. Yet I, Enoch, have done justice and righteousness and peace and truth in your sight, O Lord of spirits. You are merciful and gracious, forgiving iniquities and having regard for sacrifices and gifts, and receiving humble supplications with a merciful heart. And you desire retribution and vengeance and wrath, and you will render retribution, vengeance and wrath, and they shall know that you are the Lord of spirits. For I have seen terrible sights against my will, and I have seen the punishment of the holy watchers. But I have not been made partaker of their sin and their destruction. I have shut my eyes to their sins, and have chosen righteousness, have not condemned the living to death, nor their sin to destruction, but have prayed for them in repentance, and have implored the King of the age to have mercy on them. Repent, therefore, you angels of heaven, you who have sinned. Return to the Lord of the world, for it is not too late to turn back, to return to the Most High, and to become humble in his sight, for he is merciful and compassionate, and he desires to forgive all transgressions. So Enoch warned the watchers. He gave them the opportunity to repent, but they refused. And so now it's time for God to carry out his judgment. And let me remind you, this is just like in the book of Genesis, where God warned the watchers, the Nephilim. He warned Adam and Eve. He warned Noah, but each time they refused to listen. And so God carried out his plan. Now, in the case of the watchers, we see God carry out his judgment in two ways. First, he sent the flood, the same way he dealt with the Nephilim and the corrupt humans. But there was something else God did to deal with the watchers. And again, we get a glimpse of this in Enoch, but the details are revealed in other pseudepigraphal books, and most notably the Book of Jubilees. In these extra-biblical accounts, we learn that the watchers were bound and imprisoned in the abyss, a place that's sometimes referred to as the prison of the watchers, or Tartarus. And in some cases, we even hear that they were thrown into the same place. Enoch refers to this prison as the place where the chains of the earth bind the giants. Ultimately, they will be bound there for 400 years, and then after their imprisonment, they will be allowed to come out. But you know what's funny? Another biblical figure knew about this prison of the watchers, and he used it to support his message. And if you guessed Judas, you'd be correct. So for our next episode in this series, We're going to look at the Book of Jubilees, talk about the prison of the Watchers, and see how Judas used it in his defense. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up to help us grow. Subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment down below about what you thought of today's video. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out our other videos, especially our Bible Basics playlist. We'll see you in the next one. Hello everyone, welcome to part 4 of our series on the missing books of the Bible. I can't believe we're already at part 4. Time flies when you're having fun. And if you haven't seen the previous videos in this series, then be sure to check them out after this one. I'll put links to them in the description below. Now, if you watched my last video, then you know that we covered the book of Jasher. It was mentioned in the Bible, but where is it now? So for this video, I want to cover another book that was very well known in the Old Testament period. In fact, it was so well known that the Apostle Jude quoted it directly in his letter. It was so well received that it had its own followers. But over time, it was removed from the Bible. So here's the big question. If Enoch was so powerful, why was it removed from the Bible? So let's begin with a brief overview of what the Book of Enoch actually is. According to Wikipedia, the Book of Enoch consists of 5 parts. Part 1 is called the Astronomical Book of Enoch, or the Book of the Watchers. And in this section, we learn about the fallen angels that came down to earth and mated with human women. The offspring were giants, and their existence caused great wickedness on the earth. One of these giants was named Goliath, who was slain by David. And you can read more about him in my previous video on the Nephilim, which I'll link to in the description below. Part 2 of Enoch is known as the Book of Parables, and it's a collection of similes and metaphors used to teach religious lessons. Part 3 is called the Book of Dreams, and it contains apocalyptic visions and a heavenly banquet. Part 4 is called the Book of the Secrets, and it deals with angelology and other topics. And finally, Part 5 is known as the Epistle of Enoch, and it was written in the form of a letter addressed to the people of Israel. This section is also called the Greek Ethiopic version. So this last section of the book appears to have been written in Greek, whereas the other sections were originally written in Hebrew. Now, all of these different sections were written by different authors over a span of several centuries. So not all of them were written by someone named Enoch, whoever he was. And while it's true that some church leaders did recognize the Book of Enoch, they never agreed on which sections should be included in the book. Even in the earliest manuscript fragments we have of the Book of Enoch, they contain only a small portion of what's found in the complete book today. So in order to understand why the Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible, we must first answer the question, which Book of Enoch are we talking about? As it turns out, there are 3 different versions of Enoch that we need to discuss: the canonical Book of Enoch, the Ethiopian Orthodox version of Enoch, and the complete Book of Enoch. Let's start with the canonical Book of Enoch, because that's the one that most Christians today aren't even aware exists. And to be clear, the canonical Book of Enoch has nothing to do with the current biblical book of Hebrews. That's just a coincidence. Anyway, the canonical Book of Enoch is only 36 verses long, and it was probably written around the year 300 BC. This book contains no mention of fallen angels, and its content has nothing to do with the other longer works attributed to Enoch. Instead, this version of Enoch is a collection of wisdom sayings similar to the book of Proverbs. It teaches things like how God created the world and how people should live their lives. And it's actually quite similar to other pseudepigraphical books, like the Book of Ben Sirah, which we covered in my last video. So when someone like the Apostle Jude quotes from the Book of Enoch, he's not quoting from this short book of wisdom sayings. He's quoting from a much longer version of Enoch that we know today as the Ethiopian Orthodox version of Enoch. This version is different from the canonical Book of Enoch because it contains the other 4 sections that we discussed earlier, including the fallen angels. So Jude could have quoted from any one of those sections, but unfortunately, we don't know for sure which one he had in mind. Finally, there's the complete Book of Enoch, which includes everything found in the Ethiopian Orthodox version plus additional material. This version is significantly longer than the others, containing over 1,500 verses. We know that it existed as early as the year 100 AD because the church father Irenaeus mentioned it in his work Against Heresies. And it's very likely that Jude was quoting from this version when he mentioned the Book of Enoch in his letter. However, unlike the canonical Book of Enoch, which was accepted by many church leaders, the complete Book of Enoch was never formally accepted as scripture. And there are two reasons for that. First, the content of the book is rather strange, to say the least. It contains apocalyptic visions, fallen angels, an elaborate cosmology and other ideas that blurred the line between heaven and earth. And while many Christians in the early church enjoyed reading it, mainstream church leaders saw it as being too esoteric and mystical. The second reason is simply that the book was never included in the official list of books that became known as the canon of Scripture. Now, if you want to watch my video on the canon, then be sure to check it out after this one. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But for now, I just want to point out that the Book of Enoch was never officially recognized by any major group within Christianity except for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So the real question isn't why was the Book of Enoch removed from the Bible. The answer to that question is simple. It was never in the Bible to begin with. There are three books that have traditionally been called the Book of Enoch. There's the short, canonical book, the medium-length Ethiopian Orthodox version, and the much longer, complete version. Only the canonical book was ever considered for inclusion in the Bible, but neither the Orthodox version nor the complete version were ever seriously considered. So when the Apostle Jude quoted from the Book of Enoch, he was either quoting from the canonical book or he was quoting from a lost and now forgotten version of Enoch. Now, before we go, I want to address something else. In the past, some people have tried to argue that the Book of Enoch was actually written by Enoch, the great-great-grandfather of Jesus Christ. According to Matthew 1, Enoch was the son of Jared and the father of Methuselah, and he lived to be 365 years old. Genesis 5 tells us that Enoch walked with God, and after his life was finished, he was taken up by God. Now, some try to argue that he wrote the Book of Enoch, but the problem with that view is that it contradicts what the Bible itself says about him. The Book of Enoch claims that its author was taken up into heaven and given special knowledge, and that makes no sense if we assume that he was the same person as Enoch, the son of Jared, because the Bible tells us that Enoch was taken up into heaven without dying. So if the Book of Enoch was written by the same Enoch who sired children and lived to be 365 years old, then wouldn't he have died before he was taken up to heaven? Not only that, but the Book of Enoch is filled with apocalyptic visions that were never recorded anywhere else in the Bible. And yet the Bible says that Enoch walked with God. It doesn't say that he had special angelic visitors who gave him secret knowledge. So if the Bible is correct, and I believe it is, then the Book of Enoch could not have been written by the Enoch of Genesis 5. And those are my thoughts on the matter. Do you think the Book of Enoch should be in the Bible, or do you agree that it belongs in the same category as the Book of Jasher? You decide. From a mystical book about Noah's son to a secret society that guarded the true history of the world, these stories will take you on a journey through time. So sit back, relax, and let's explore some secrets from the past together. Part 5. Mysteries and Prophecies. This is one of the most talked about books in the Bible. People call it mysterious, amazing, and even dangerous. Why? Well, it has some pretty wild stories. In the book, there's a guy named Enoch who says he was chosen by God to share special secrets with people. He talks about a time when the bad guys try to trick the good guys, but God steps in and saves the day. Enoch also shared stories about his father, Methuselah, the longest living person in the world, and his journey to heaven. But the most shocking part of the book is that it speaks of a coming Messiah called the Elect One, the Son of Man. This Messiah is said to bring justice and peace to the world. Many people believe that these predictions are about Jesus Christ. Let's dig a bit deeper into the origins of this fascinating book. According to tradition, Enoch wrote this book around 300 years before Christ. It's not part of the Old Testament, but it's still important because it gives us a new way to look at how the Jews thought about the world and their faith during that time. However, scholars are divided over whether or not to include it in the Bible. Some say it should be there because it teaches us so much about what people believed back then. But others say it shouldn't be there because it wasn't written by one of the prophets. What makes things even more complicated is that the Book of Enoch has been copied many times and changed a lot over the years. It's a long journey through time. In the beginning of the book, Enoch tells the story of how God made the world, how Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, and how other important events happened. Enoch also talks about the Watchers, who are angels that watch over humanity. But some of the Watchers fell to earth and married human women. They had kids, and those kids became giants. These giants caused so much trouble that God decided to wipe them out along with everyone else on earth except for Noah and his family. That's right, we're talking about the Great Flood. But that's not all. The book also talks about something that happened after the flood. When people started to spread out across the world, they didn't follow God's rules, and they began worshipping false gods. God sent another prophet named Ezra to tell them to turn back to him, but they didn't listen. So God sent a giant bird called an eagle to eat up their fields and crops. Finally, God sent a plague to punish them. Enoch doesn't just tell stories. It speaks of a coming Messiah called the Elect One, the Son of Man, who will bring justice and peace to the world. Some say it predicts Jesus Christ. Others believe it's too dangerous to be read by ordinary people. But one thing is certain, the Book of Enoch offers a vision of reality that most of us have never seen. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. But wait, there's more. Enoch also talks about multiple heavens, not just one. He says that the first heaven is where angels live, and the second heaven is where the stars and planets are. And the third heaven is where God's throne is. It's so high that humans can't reach it. And guess what? There's even a fourth heaven, which is the highest place of all. Only God can go there. Enoch also talks about a big fight between good and evil that happens in the sky. The bad angels are led by Azazel, and they make a mess in the world by tricking people into doing bad things. But the good angels are led by Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. Together, they try to keep people away from evil. And here's the climax of the story. After the battle in the heavens, the evil angels are locked up in a place called the Abyss. Michael and his team win, and God sends a big storm to punish the people on earth. But don't worry, there's hope for the righteous. Those who are good will shine like stars in the sky and live forever. As we wrap up this video, remember to leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more videos like this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one, a mysterious ancient site. Deep in the mountains of a remote location lies a mysterious site known as the observatory. What makes this place so special is that it seems to align perfectly with certain stars in the night sky, suggesting that it may have been used for astronomical observations. According to legend, this site was once used by a secret group of people who had special knowledge of the universe and its cycles. They believed that by studying the stars, they could predict the future and gain insight into the mysteries of life. But who were these people and what happened to them? One theory is that they were members of a secret society known as the Keepers of the Secret, a group dedicated to protecting ancient wisdom and knowledge from the rest of the world. Another theory is that they were part of a forgotten civilization that thrived in the region thousands of years ago. Some researchers suggest that the site served as a burial ground for important members of these secret groups. The alignment of the tomb with certain stars may have been intentional, designed to help guide the deceased on their journey to the afterlife. As archaeologists continue to uncover more about this mysterious site, we may learn more about the beliefs and practices of the ancient people who lived here. What do you think about this secret place? Let us know in the comments. The Forbidden Book. In the year 2004, a surprising discovery was made in the small town of Nag Hammadi in Egypt. Archaeologists found a collection of ancient texts hidden in a jar buried underground. These texts became known as the Nag Hammadi Library. But one book stood out from the rest. It was written in a language that nobody could understand. It was wrapped in a strange way, and it had a symbol that nobody recognized. Even though the book was old and worn out, it seemed very important. When scholars finally figured out the language, they found out that the book was a secret text that was meant only for a special group of people. It talked about a powerful king who was more than just a person, and it described a path to a better existence. The book was filled with strange ideas and stories that weren't in the Bible. People started to argue about what to do with the book. Some wanted to show it to everyone, while others wanted to keep it hidden. The debate got so heated that the government had to step in and decide. They chose to show the book to everyone, but they also put some limits on it. The book was studied by experts, but they couldn't agree on what it really meant. Some thought it was just a made-up story, while others believed it was a real account of a special event. People kept asking questions about the book, but nobody could answer them. This book is a reminder that there are still many mysteries in the world that we don't understand. It makes us wonder if there's more out there that we don't know about. Maybe there are even more secrets waiting to be found. What are your thoughts on this mysterious book? Share your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more exciting discoveries. The journey of a lifetime. Imagine going on an adventure to find a lost city or a hidden treasure. That's exactly what happened to someone named Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff was a stonemason who traveled all over the world learning different building techniques. One day, he got a letter from a friend telling him about an ancient temple hidden in the desert. It was said that the temple held priceless treasures, but no one had ever found it. Hiram and his friends set out on a journey to find the temple. They faced many challenges along the way, like dangerous animals and harsh weather conditions. But they never gave up. After many days of searching, they finally found the temple. It was covered in sand, but they could see that it was beautifully decorated with carvings and paintings. As they explored the temple, they found all kinds of treasures, like gold coins and precious gems. But that wasn't all. They also found a secret passageway that led them to a hidden chamber. Inside the chamber, they found a mysterious box. Hiram opened the box and found an ancient scroll. It was filled with secret knowledge about the universe and the powers of the human mind. Hiram realized that the temple was actually an ancient school where people came to learn about spirituality and the mysteries of life. He felt like he had discovered a lost piece of history, and that's not all. Before leaving the temple, Hiram placed the scroll back in the box and hid it in a secret location. He wanted to protect it from those who would use it for evil purposes. Hiram's journey was full of danger and excitement. He discovered not only lost treasure, but also ancient wisdom that had been hidden for centuries. His story reminds us that there's still so much to explore and discover in our world. What would you do if you found a hidden temple filled with ancient treasures? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more exciting adventures. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. Which mystery fascinated you the most? Was it the Book of Enoch, the Forbidden Book, or Hiram Abiff's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more thrilling tales from the past. Stay curious and keep exploring the world around you. Who knows what secrets and wonders await your discovery? Until next time, happy adventuring.